Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shore.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Women Today.
Faster my good afternoon. It's just coming up to 6 minutes past 2 and this is Women Today with me, Christy D. Haven. And today we have another of our special Conister Rocks biographical programmes where we talk to some of the island's best known and most interesting personalities. We find out about their lives and the music that means something to them. And today we are delighted to be joined by a woman who hails from Russia but has lived in Latvia, Slovakia, Malta and Italy before eventually moving to the island in 2005. Her incredible artistic talent has propelled her from small exhibitions in local galleries to high-profile portrait commissions on display in permanent collections around the world. She says that she's proud to have never compromised her artistic style or moral principles. She has a talent for decorating cakes, and she can now boast the talent of Living Master. You have the title of Living Master. Svetlana Cameron, thank you so much for being with us today. What is it like to be a Living Master?
First of all, thank you very much, Christy, for inviting me here. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for everyone who will be listening to this program. The title of Living Master, it's amazing. It's been my I can't say my dream, but let's say professional dream, professional goal. I discovered this an institution called the Art Renewal Center in America that started the movement of reviving traditional art, and it was helping the artists who work in the style of classical realism to showcase their works, to compete for prizes, to get known to collectors and galleries. And I've been wanting to be associated with that institution for many years before I even had the courage to submit something to their competitions. And finally last year I was brave enough to send my portfolio to them. I was successful in their competitions for a few years in a row, which kind of encouraged me to try. And I sent them my portfolio, they reviewed it, and they have 3 steps of recognition for artists. And they gave me the second title. So I skipped the first step straight away. So they have Associate Master, ARC Living Artists, Associate Living Masters, and then Full Living Master. That's the ultimate top. So I got on the second step straight away, which was amazing. So my works are now permanently represented on their online museum and appear in their catalogues, and so I get I get to promote my events to the worldwide audience, for example, through their newsfeed. So that's amazing to be recognized by experts in America that deal with the best artists in the world is an honor.
Just incredible, and especially because, and we'll find out more about this a little bit later, but to be honest, you've not actually been doing this for very long either. No,
it's including my training years. I've been doing it for about 15 years, which I don't know. It may sound like a long time or not very long time, depending on how you look at it. But this is not something I've been doing since early childhood. Mm-hmm. You know, when I read other artists' biographies, they write that they were born with a pencil in their hand and they knew they wanted to be artists from the age of 5. And I think how wonderful it must be to know that, because I didn't know I could draw till I was about 22. Yes, compared to other artists, I'm a relative latecomer to the art world.
Well, we'll find out how you actually got involved in it a little bit later, but I did mention the cake decorations. I have to ask, are they as intricate and detailed as your portraits?
Yes, you asked me what talents I have apart from painting, and I love cooking and I like baking cakes and decorating them. That probably can be mentioned as a talent. I don't know, can you call it a talent?
Yes, definitely. I can't do it, so I think it's a talent. And it's just nice for people to know as well that, you know, you are a rounded person. It's not just about you sort of sitting in a studio all the time.
I like
just
creative, crafty things. I was a very crafty child. I had I don't know, 10 different hobbies probably throughout my childhood, and they were all creative. It was sewing, knitting, lace making, wood carving, drawing and painting too, but they did not stand out as something special. It was just part of my activities. So I grew up doing all that, and I always made presents for my mum and my relatives. They were always made by me, but I did not want that to be my career. It didn't even cross my mind when I was a child that I would have a creative career.
Well, because in fact, initially you actually thought you might end up being a musician, didn't you? Because you spent 7 years playing the piano. Was that something that you thought at one point, I may do this for a career?
Yes, I was very, very enthusiastic about piano and music in general. I was desperate to go to the music school, and my parents supported me, and I spent 7 years playing the piano. But after about 3 or 4 years, I as I was growing up and becoming more self-aware, and I could look at people around me, I just came to the realization that I did not have musical talent. I did not have amazing performance skills. My voice wasn't anything special. And I was very nervous on stage, which, is not a good thing for a musician. So, and I hoped I would grow out of it, but it just didn't go with age. And at a certain point, I realized I'm not going to be a musician. So my enthusiasm kind of went downhill and then disappeared completely. But I really, really love music. I appreciate music. I'm glad music was a big part of my childhood. I have absolutely no regrets. I think it made me a sort of more, what do you say, well-rounded, all-round. It made me a better educated person because I learned about composers. I learned music theory. I don't think it was a waste of time. It was wonderful. But it didn't become my career. And then after that, in my mid-teens, I got interested in languages. Mm-hmm. I had a good teacher, the English teacher, who spotted my ability to learn foreign languages, and she started encouraging me and pushing me towards that and to a more advanced level. And I developed a really strong interest, and after school I chose to study languages. I went to university. I spent 5 years studying languages on a very, very advanced level. My major subject was English. That's why I can speak English without a Russian accent. Without a strong Russian accent. I know it's there, but people don't always guess I'm from Russia. They think I'm Swedish or Scandinavian, but they don't necessarily think I'm Russian when they speak to me. Yeah, so I became a qualified language specialist. I could teach English as a foreign language and German as well. But I chose to work as a translator and interpreter, and I loved my job. I did not become an artist because I hated my job. I loved my job, and I was thinking of going to a more advanced level to take special courses in simultaneous interpretation and take it to a new level and maybe take up another language. But my life changed quite unexpectedly for me when I got one of my first. I tried a few jobs initially. I tried to work in an office as a translator, which was rather boring. So I wanted a more dynamic job where I could meet native speakers, English-speaking people. I was living in Moscow at the time. English-speaking people every day. And not sit on the same chair in the same office every day, move around and do something really interesting. I had a strong interest in art history, so I took some additional training and became a guide and an interpreter in the national museums in Moscow.
And that would have had, I'm sure, a very sort of strong influence on where you went next. And we'll come to that in just a minute. But I'm intrigued by the linguistic side that you're talking about and the languages, because, being an interpreter, it's not just about that word means that word means that word, because there's all the nuances and there's expression in it. Then do you think that perhaps gave you a better understanding of people in order to then be able to, at a later stage, maybe even bring that into your work, because you don't just paint paint people as if they're photos. You capture them as a person, don't you?
Absolutely. When I was trained to be an interpreter, we did not just study language. It was a language and culture, and country studying was a big block of subjects, and I knew everything about Great Britain before I even came to this country for the first time. We studied history of Great Britain, literature, culture, how the country works, how elections work, how education works, how the people's habits, everyday life. Because when you interpret, you don't just translate word for word. You need to understand read between the lines and understand the meaning, and the connotation is the word. Not just what's said, but what's meant, but what people say as well to successfully interpret. It's a fascinating field to work in. And then I worked with people in museums, which was really interesting too. I was meeting new people almost every day. Or I would spend 2-3 days with the same group of people, for example, which gave me a lot of experience of understanding people, dealing with them. And I think it helps me in my career as a portrait artist, because as a portrait artist, you need to be a good psychologist to feel your subject, to understand their emotions, and also you need to be a people-friendly person that people want to spend time with, because they come to my studio. It's a one-to-one time. They need to feel comfortable to be around me, and I think my background helps me in that. Yeah,
I can imagine. And obviously we mentioned the music, and this is of course our music-based show, and so I've asked you to give us 5 examples of music, which I know was very difficult for you, but your first choice was probably the most difficult, because it's an artist that you absolutely love, and you said that you pored over which song to choose of this particular man. Tell me who it is and which song you've chosen.
It's George Michael. I'm a big fan of George Michael, and when you gave me the task to choose 5 tracks, I just wrote 5 songs by George Michael, and this is it. We're going to play George Michael for an hour. But then I thought maybe it would be not fair on the listeners if they don't share my enthusiasm. And it was hard to choose a particular track because I love so many songs by George Michael. I chose a song that's called An Easier Affair because I love the mood of the song. I love the melody, and the lyrics are very powerful, and I thought it would set the right tone for the program. Let's listen to it.
This is George Michael, An Easier Affair.
Who love me. To think I thought I could be some kind of family man. I told myself I was straight, but I shouldn't have worried, 'cause my maker had a better plans for me. And I'm dancing with the freaks now. I'm having so much fun. Is what you read now. I'll do my dance with everyone. They're getting too much sun. Yes, I'm dancing with the freaks now. Too much heavy, but having too much fun for them. Look who's talking, guilty fate now. Let me tell you, people, it's an easier affair. Not living my life for the people on my mind. No, got nothing to hide from anyone. Yes, I'm walking on new air, just living my life. Better believe I'm gonna get what's mine. See, I don't have the time for the haters. And all the time that I wasted, how careless of me. Too young and stupid to see I put my life in their hands. want me to hate them. There's no hurry.
That is George Michael with a very interesting message there. That's one of his songs, An Easy Affair, as chosen by our studio guest this afternoon, Svetlana Cameron. And Svetlana, before we move on, I just want to say I hadn't heard that song before, I have to admit. The lyrics are very strong, and he's actually being very brave in that song. I hadn't realised he'd written a song about his background, about coming out, about what he'd been through. So it's very powerful, and again, all about expression.
If you sum up the meaning of that song, it's about freedom. He says, "I don't have time for the haters and just having a good time, enjoying my life." And I think it's a great message. It's it's very important, and I love that song. Yeah.
It's interesting you say you don't have time for the haters, because you have to be very brave in putting your work out there, because of course as soon as you put work out there, and especially in the time that we live in with the internet, you are potentially opening yourself up to review. How do you cope with that?
Well, fortunately, I have a lot of good feedback that makes me feel very good. But every now and again, I do face criticism regularly, actually, from all sorts of people who say this is so last century, it's been done, what's the point? What's the point of making a portrait with a perfect likeness of the person? Why not just take a photograph? All these usual criticism that realist painters face. But it doesn't bother me. I'm happy to do what I do.
Do you ever respond to them, or do you just sort of let it be?
When somebody talks to me directly, of course I have to respond to that. If it's just floating somewhere online, I can ignore it and just get on with it. And then, like George Michael says, don't have time for that. Which is true, I don't have time for that. I'm very busy.
She really is. And we'll be finding out a lot more about Svetlana Cameron and what it is that keeps her busy coming up just after this break.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Women Today.
It's just coming up to 25 minutes past 2. You are listening to Women Today. We have a special Conister Rocks programme this afternoon, and we are joined by the artist Svetlana Cameron. Svetlana, what was life like for you as a child then? Because as we mentioned before, you did travel around a lot. You were born in Russia though. So what was that sort of travelling around like? Just give us a little bit of a flavour.
The reason I travelled around a lot, because my dad was in the army, in the Air Force, and the pilots, they get moved around a lot. So we lived wherever my dad was sent. The first place was Latvia. This is where I spent the first 7 years of my life. Then we were in Czechoslovakia for 5 years. The first 3 years were in Slovakia, and then 2 years in Czech Republic, not far from Prague. So that's the first 12 years of my life. And by the time we returned to what was Soviet Union then, it was just the year before. No, it was less than a year. It was actually just before it all disintegrated. So I did not grow up in the Soviet Union as such. We were going to visit grandma every summer. But my life was slightly different from a typical child growing in the Soviet Union at the time.
So what was it like having to move? Because presumably then you went to various different schools. What was that like? Because you could form friendships, then you'd have to leave. And
then when we moved to Russia, we moved 3 more times before my parents finally settled when my dad retired. So I went to 5 different schools by the time I reached 18. And it seemed like totally crazy at the time, and my parents were very concerned about how it was going to affect me and my brother. I have a younger brother. But I think now, looking back at my life, I think it was actually good for me, because I think it made me very adaptable. I can move easily, and I continued moving in my grown-up life. I've moved 3 times. And I'm not intimidated by the prospect of moving to a new town or a new country. I'm so used to meeting new people. I don't feel intimidated. I can walk in a room full of strangers and not feel uncomfortable about it. And it's great. I love it.
Because you have to do that a lot now.
I was fine in the end. And I actually did well academically at school. It didn't affect my my progress at school, so it was fine. But it was a lot of packing, unpacking, and moving every 2-3 years. And then when we moved back to what was Soviet Union, then, as I said, the moment when it collapsed and disintegrated back into 15 republics, it happened when I was on the train. We were traveling from south of Russia to the very, very north, where we were going to live. It took us about 3 days. Yes. So my mum and dad relocated to the very north of Russia, near Finnish border. It's a very, very, very the northern coast of Russia, beyond the polar circle. And they left me and my brother with my mum's family. So they would go and settle there, and then my aunt was bringing us back. We boarded the train still in the Soviet Union, and 2.5 days later, when we got off, my dad said, the country stopped to exist, and we thought he was joking. It was that strange moment. I didn't take it seriously. It's like when the referendum happened last year and people couldn't believe Brexit was happening. It was the same kind of feeling. No, can it be reversed? You're joking. But things began to unfold, and you realize it's not a joke. It's happening, and the 90s were very chaotic time. Not really the best time. It was really hard for people to adjust to the new reality, because the economy was really destroyed then. But we survived, and the country is doing actually very well now. Every time I go every year, and it's changing for the better every year. I'm quite happy to go and see how life has progressed there. Yeah, but that was that historic moment that I remember. So I've lived through that, and the unions get formed and then they disintegrate, and this is life, and it's amazing that I was there at the time.
And it actually changed an awful lot of things in your world for various different reasons, and it actually brings us into your next song, because one of the things that was changed with the whole sort of development in the country was music. Music,
yes, it was music. It was everything. It was things that appeared in shops, and the when we grew up behind the Iron Curtain, we were only exposed to what the government was allowed to us to see and hear, and I grew up with very, very different music from what you heard when you were a child. So when in the 90s the Iron Curtain fell, and all this the new things from the West just poured into the country, and all this abundance of music, like avalanche of Western music, the rock, pop, all the previous big stars from the 70s, 80s that I was not familiar with, like the Queen, for example, which will lead us to my next choice. When I heard Freddie Mercury for the first time, he was already not part of the Queen. He was already Freddie Mercury, and it was one of his latest songs. It was just mind-blowing. I never heard anything like that in my life. And that was a big discovery, the Western music. And there was a sense of novelty, which you wouldn't have had by then. You probably would have heard Freddie Mercury hundreds of times. But for me, it was a new artist, and it had a really strong effect on me. So that's why I chose the next song as the Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. I'm just a poor boy, I need no sympathy, because I'm easy come, easy go, little high, little low. Any way the wind blows doesn't really matter to me. To me.
the absolutely genius Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody there. The next choice of music from our studio guest this afternoon, Svetlana Cameron. Sadly, don't have time to play the whole thing, but I think you all know it back to front anyway. Thanks very much to Tim, who just sent in a message to say there is a delay in Rally Isle of Man. As a result, and with schools finishing shortly, stage 10, which is the Clanna Road, which is roads in and around St Mark's, has now been cancelled. So stage 10, which is Clanna Road, which is roads in and around St Mark's, has now been cancelled. So roads will reopen in the next 10 minutes. Thanks very much to Tim for letting us know about that. But we are joined in the studio this afternoon by artist Svetlana Cameron, who is sharing information about her life, her background, how she got into art, and also those pieces of music, which is always interesting to hear. You say, Svetlana, that you were drawn to portraiture, pardon the pun, from the very beginning. And I wonder why. What is it about that particular sort of format and medium that interests you?
I don't know why I was drawn to portraiture, but I felt it very clearly when I started working in museums. Even as a child, when I was looking at reproductions of artworks and books, I always stopped and looked at portraits for longer than other types of artworks. And then in the museums, I really loved the halls with portraiture, and I read a lot about portrait artists. And so when I started drawing, my natural desire was to learn how to draw faces. And I remember the first book that I bought, the art instruction book, was Teach Yourself How to Draw Beautiful Portraits or something like that. So it was still a hobby at the time. I started taking art lessons. I was about 22, I think. Still, I wanted to develop as a hobby. I didn't think I would be able to do it as a career. I didn't need to have it as a career because I had a career. I had a job and I loved it and everything. But when I started taking art lessons, my teacher told me I had an ability. And he said, you are gifted. It's not often that you see that in people, but you're gifted but not trained. That was the expression. That if you want to develop it, you need to go through proper training, and then you can have it as a serious hobby or turn it into a career. It's up to you. But you need to work on this, and that encouraged me. And I was very fortunate. I came across an artist who was trained at the Florence Academy of Art. It's a 19th century classical technique, similar to what was practiced in France at the time. The private atelier, the master, the students, drawing from plaster casts, copying old masters, working with live model all the time. So it was proper foundation for my future development, and it just reinforced my understanding that. Reinforced my how can I say? I just realized that portraiture is what I want to do.
You had a real conviction.
Real conviction.
It.
Yes. So when I decided to go to Florence to take an advanced course, I specialized exclusively in portraiture. I did not do anything else. And then we moved to the Isle of Man. So my career, actually, the actual art career, started here in the Isle of Man 12 years ago. I had all this wonderful, beautiful training elsewhere, but I started actually practicing everything I had learned before.
And interestingly,
here in the Isle of Man.
And interestingly, I was mentioning to you off air there, I think the first time we actually met was, I think might have been one of your early exhibitions, which ties back into your love of music. It was my first big exhibition. It was your first.
Yes.
Well, it was. It ties into your love of music and your background with music, because actually what you'd done is you had given certain paintings to different musicians and asked them to write a piece of music. Is that right? Because I remember Christine Conister did Morning Light.
No, it was the other way around.
Right,
Christine chose my artwork. She didn't know me. And she saw my artwork online. I think she wanted to write an album of songs inspired by Manx resident artists.
Yeah.
So she probably did her homework and looked all the websites and went through Sale Gallery and she selected 12 artworks, and one of them was mine. And she wrote a beautiful, absolutely beautiful song called Morning Light that was named after my artwork with the same title, Morning Light. And then she emailed me and said, hello, Svetlana, you don't know me, but I'm a musician, Christine Conister. I'm currently in Los Angeles. I wrote a song inspired by my artwork. Would you like to hear it? I was amazed. I said, of course. So she sent me the song. It was absolutely beautiful. And Christine asked permission to use the image of my artwork on the album cover. And I asked her permission to play her song at my exhibition next to the artwork. And I think it worked beautifully because I remember people were coming and they were standing in front of the actual original artwork and listening to Christine Conister's song through the headphones.
I remember doing that myself.
It was very special, I love that.
And that's where it all began, which is fascinating to hear. Now, we're moving into your next piece of music, which is someone who you've actually become quite friendly with over the years, and you also met her, I think, on the Isle of Man.
On the Isle of Man, yes. It's Katie Mellor, my next choice. I heard Katie's songs for the very first time about a decade before I met her in the Isle of Man. She just made her name. She became a big hit worldwide. And I remember in the studio where I was taking art lessons, there was always background music played, and Katie's songs were a big part of my life then when I was learning how to draw. So that was when I discovered her. And then 10 years later, I met her here on the island, and we met a few times. It was mainly the charity events through the charity that she's a patron of. And then last year, she actually visited me in my studio, which was amazing. And she has a very strong interest in visual arts. And we had a long chat for about an hour and a half about art, about music, and we were comparing different approaches, because she writes songs and I create visual art, and we discovered we had a lot in common. I mean, we artists and musicians in general.
It's all art at the end of the day.
Yes. You have the idea, you have the medium, you have the composition, you know what you want to achieve, and they express it in music and we express it in the visual form. So there are differences, but there's so much similarity. I was amazed, and so it had to be Katie Mellor, and this is the song I really love. It's called The Flood.
Back to where they came from. Blame, no one is to blame. As natural as the rain that falls, here comes the flood again. See the rock that you hold on to. Is it gonna save you when the earth begins to crumble? Why do you feel you have to hold on? Imagine if you let go. Blame, no one is to blame. As natural as the rain that falls, here comes the flood again. Wash away the wave that pulls you down.
Little piece there of Katie Mellor's song The Flood, which was the next choice of music by my studio guest this afternoon, Svetlana Cameron, friend of the stars. And we'll have more chat with Svetlana Cameron just coming up after this break.
The Nation Station, Men's Radio.
Women Today.
You are listening to Women Today. It's just 2:47 now. We're talking with Svetlana Cameron, and just off air there, Svetlana, we were talking about how exceptionally busy you are, because you do have sort of a backlog of commissions, don't you? That I think, is it 2 or 3 years worth?
Something like that. It's hard to tell exactly because I don't know exactly how long each artwork will take, but it's roughly about 2 years.
Oh my word. So, okay, I have to ask you, what is on your easel right now?
On my easel right now is an amazing project. It's the most high-profile commission I have ever received so far. It's the ceremonial portrait of the head of the Royal Artillery Regiment in England.
My word.
It's a large, full-length military portrait of one of the most senior military people in Britain. It's my first military commission, actually. Very exciting. After completion, it'll go to the permanent collection of the Royal Artillery Regiment and will hang in a really beautiful building in Wiltshire, in the headquarters. I've been there a couple of times, went at the beginning to see the venue where my portrait will hang. And they have a really nice, really amazing art collection because the regiment is 300 years old. They had a lot of, they have a lot of portraits there that were done by artists who lived in the 18th, 19th century, and they have paintings by such artists like Franz Winterhalter, who was one of the best portrait painters in his time, and George Frederick Watts, for example. So my painting will hang next to them in the same building. I'm painting the 31st Master Gunner, and the tradition started back in the 17th century and has been unbroken since then. Master Gunner is the link between the regiment and the Queen. The Queen is the Captain General. So the Queen is the head of the regiment, and he's the second person under the Queen. Which is
so are we trying to say that you never know in the future you might get to paint the Queen?
Well, I don't know. No, I'm not going to comment on that. But I'm very honoured to have this very prestigious commission.
And the thing is, I've noticed with your work, you do enjoy it's not just about the face, is it? You really enjoy painting the detail of the clothing and all and something like this with the military.
Yes,
you must really be looking forward to that.
Ceremonial wear. I think it's evident in my work. If people have seen my works, they would know I love costumes. There are two passions in my. I love painting people, and I love painting beautiful costumes and with elaborate designs. I even for private portraits of children, I choose clothes with embroidery, with lace. I love that. And I think I'm very suited for official portraiture because the ceremonial wear is very elaborate and very beautiful, and I think it needs to be captured well for posterity.
Which you have done, of course, with President of Tynwald and various other dignitaries as well, which you've become very known for.
Yes. And
we did talk before Boo came on about whether or not you had music in your studio, and the next piece of music that we're going to hear is something that you said you could potentially have on because the likes of Enigma you really enjoy listening to. Just tell us a bit about the music that you do listen to in your studio.
I do listen to music all the time, but when I work in my studio, I'm very particular about what kind of music I play. I cannot listen to pop or rock or anything energetic, upbeat, loud. It distracts me. I need to, my work is very detailed and requires a very, very deep concentration. So I like the music that creates a certain mood and enhances my concentration, not distracts me from my work. So it quite often it's music without lyrics. It's either instrumental music or I listen to a lot of classical music,
which people would probably expect with the traditional
is a lot. I play that a lot. And then if it's not classical, it's something like chill out tunes, and Enigma is a good example. I love Enigma, and I've listened to it a lot in the past, and every now and again we go back to it and start all over again. It just creates this amazing atmosphere that's very suited for my it helps me to achieve the right frame of mind.
And hence your next track, which is Simple Obsession.
Yeah, Simple Obsession. Maybe it's not a very typical example of Enigma, but I thought it would suit our program better. So Andrew Donald, the voice of Enigma, lovely voice, love it. Let's listen to it.
This pain, I'm doing everything to be alright. What about
That is Andrew Donald and Simple Obsession, which is the penultimate track chosen by my studio guest Svetlana Cameron. We'll hear what the final piece of music is after this.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Women Today.
You are listening to Women Today, and my guest this afternoon is the award-winning artist and living master, Svetlana Cameron. Svetlana, I could talk to you for another hour. I can't believe we're almost out of time. But what people want to know is where they can see your work next. And you do have a public exhibition coming up, don't you?
I do, yes. It's going to be a small exhibition, but it's going to represent the highlights of my portfolios, about 8 best pieces that won awards and critical acclaim in various competitions. I'm showing them in London, in the very prestigious area near Bond Street underground station, not far from Oxford Street. It's the Neville Johnson and Tom Howley showroom, the luxury bespoke interior companies. We decided to do like a little experiment and to show the work not in a blank wall in an art gallery, but actually in a nice interior. And we're going to have a nice reception. It feels very much like home. So everyone is welcome. It's the artworks will be on display between 25th of September and 4th of October, and anyone can come and view them. After that, they will move to a private club, Reform Club in Pall Mall, for a charity evening. It's going to black tie Russian charity event, and I'm donating an artwork to raise money for children who are receiving cancer treatment. So it's a very big charity gift of life, and they invited me to collaborate with them, and I'm delighted. I've created a portrait of a world famous ballerina, Russian ballerina Natalia Osipova, and she's going to be the special guest of the evening, and we hope to sell it for a lot of money. Yeah, so those are two very exciting London events, and then my artworks will return to the Isle of Man and will get exhibited at the Villa Marina at the Hospice Ball, where the people will have a chance to view them and then bid for another auction prize, a bespoke pastel commission that I've given to Hospice. So I'm collaborating with 2 children's charities this year, and it's all coming up all together very soon. It's going to be a very busy autumn.
Very exciting. I think you're going to be busy for the rest of your life, to be honest, Svetlana. But it's been an absolute joy talking to you this afternoon. Just remind people about your website and where people can find out more about you.
My website is very easy to find, www.svetlanacameron.com, and you'll find a lot of information, and you can view my artworks. If you don't have a chance to get to the exhibitions, this is the next best place to see them. The final track was Sade, Your Love is King. And Sade was the singer that I discovered many years ago when I was still living in Russia. And I played it quite a lot when I was studying, working, needed to concentrate. And there was an element of mystery for me because I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know what she looked like. I didn't know even what nationality she was and what country she was from. I just loved the soulful music that was pouring from my recorder, and I managed to carry this love of Sade throughout my life. I still love it. Still, all the songs that are not new anymore, I still love hearing them, and I do play it in my studio quite often, and I thought it would be a really nice way to finish our program. And for me, that music represents what I love about art. I like understated, quiet beauty, not flashy, not shouting, not trying to grab your attention, just creating beautiful art and showing it and sharing it with people. And this is what I like about visual art, the classical visual art, and that's the kind of music I appreciate. And I think Sade is a very suitable piece of music to include in our program.
I think so too, because we have talked obviously about your very traditional art. That's sort of you really sort of hark back to the masters, as we talked about in the show. Is there any sort of modern art or contemporary art that you like, or are you more sort of rooted in your own tastes in that sort of era as well?
There are a lot of wonderful contemporary artists working in the world today, in this country too, and I do watch them with interest, and I'm not against contemporary art. Some people think that I'm completely intolerant of contemporary art. No, I do like quite a lot of it. But when it comes to creating my own art, I love classical, and it just reflects my taste. I love classical architecture. I love classical music. I love very traditional clothes. You know, it's not just art. It's just my taste generally. It's me. It's my personality.
So do you ever feel like you're maybe born in the wrong time?
I feel that all the time. Honestly, I think I was born in the wrong century.
Well, speaking of being born, I am conscious, Svetlana Cameron, that you now need to go and do the school run because you are also a mum.
Yes.
So we should let you go. But again, thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to your next masterpieces.
Women Today.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.